So we've been basically in a buyer's market for the last few weeks or longer, and there's definitely people that want to sell their property but want to know also like why it's not selling. And so while I realize you might not be selling a house right now, hopefully you'll find this information helpful for a future reference. And then towards the end, I'm going to share Twin Cities and Wright County market information to help you decide when the best time is to buy and sell. My name is Erica Carlson. I'm with a boutique brokerage called Bricks Real Estate. If you learn anything new today, I'd love for you to join my growing channels, whether you found this on YouTube, Instagram, or my professional Facebook page. If you have any questions throughout this video or are ready to get started, we can set up a discovery call at the link below. So that link will actually take you to a series of options. That very first choice will bring you to my calendar, and we can set up a time that works best for you. So unless you're a real estate agent yourself, you probably are not familiar with real estate school. It is a short experience and it's heavy technical information about, of course, writing contracts, and it's very vocab focused, or at least that's my opinion. Now, I haven't been in real estate school for 7 years, so of course my memory is a little fuzzy, but they don't actually teach you some of the things that you almost think would be kind of fundamental, or for sure when you get out and you're ready to start, you're like, nobody told me any of this. And one of the things I don't feel like they talk about at all is what happens if you're having trouble selling a property. Like what can you do? What can you change in that element? So I think I picked up a book called 15 Reasons Your House Isn't Selling or something like that. Now, I'm not recommending anybody to run out and necessarily buy this book. I think a good real estate agent can give you this feedback, but I needed it at that time of my life, and I was thinking about it the other day and just, thinking about what are some things that could be revisited and thought through, even though I've been doing this for a while. I thought I would just pick 3 things that jumped out at me. And then, maybe that would help somebody out there. And then again, I'll talk about the data towards the end of the video. So the first 2 main ones I want to just hit on, because I tell everybody who hires me to be their listing agent, if we were going to discern real estate selling into like the simplest of concepts, we would say it's your pictures and it's your price. And the reason we say that is because we need to get showings. We can't get offers unless people are looking at the house. And because nobody gets that excited about getting a sight unseen offer unless somebody's in a circumstance where they don't have a choice on that. So we can control the narrative if we do great pictures. Now, there's always going to be exceptions to these rules. I would say like a heavy investor-based type of property that needs a lot of work is not necessarily going to come with professional pictures, or somebody who's very price conscious that, anyway, I'm going to digress on that, but there are times where professional pictures are not going to happen and be warranted. And, I would hope your agent would talk to you about that. But typically in an average to luxury property, you should be getting pictures, if not video, possibly floor plans. I mean, every agent is going to do things a little bit differently, and it doesn't mean your house isn't going to sell because floor plans weren't purchased. I mean, all this stuff costs money, and hopefully your agent's asking you what's important to you. And I don't think everything in the world should be important. I mean, we can get pictures with twilight touches. That's like where the sunset or sunrise is happening. It's just kind of a Photoshop technique. You can get aerial views where you have drone photography. That's really great for somebody who has a massive yard or a lot of acreage, things like that to think about. But pictures obviously are paramount. Let's talk about price because it is the main thing that I want to share with you today. There's multiple elements of how pricing plays into it. And the one I really wanted to focus on that a lot of people don't, I see this every day. There's just like a complete miss, and I have kind of a stupid term for it, but I'm like, avoid candy bar. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. Avoid candy bar pricing. Now, I think that's kind of a stupid thing for me to say. I don't even know if it makes sense, but what I mean by that is 99 cents is $1. Like, is anybody tricked by 99 cents versus $1? I know there's always like human psychology happening with pricing. I'm not minimizing that, but here's some numbers I'm going to throw out to you that are probably hurting your home sale. And so just kind of listen to what I'm saying so I can help you understand what web optimization means. We'll pull this all together. So for example, 249, or it's almost 250,000, but 249. Or a number like $583,120. Or maybe the price like $999,999. Okay. So my point here is the problem with all these numbers is they don't honor what's actually happening for a typical home buyer. Now, maybe back in the day we had different ways of finding real estate, but for the most part, people are using the internet, correct? Like whether we're buying a pair of jeans or shoes, even groceries. I mean, dinner tonight, right? Everything is, not everything, obviously, just a lot of things are happening on the internet. Like that's not deniable. Housing isn't separate. Like we're obviously on the internet. So what we need to honor is how people are pricing things and how loan officers talk to buyers when they're getting financing. So let's use the number 249 for simplicity. Do we think a loan officer is telling people, go buy a house for 249? Absolutely not. They might say up to 250. But they're not saying up to 251 or up to 252. People are going to speak in zeros and fives, right? I think we can agree on that. Or we're going to speak in more generalities. Now, that's not to say a person couldn't be on the cusp and they really need to buy a house at 249. I'm not discounting that. It's just they're going to set their search. We want showings before we worry about offers, right? So we need to get people into the house. So if I price it at 249 and someone sets their parameters from 0 to 250, yay me, okay? But if they set it from 0 to 245, I miss them. But most likely someone's going to set it to 250. Let's reverse it. What if they set their search from 250 to 350? I've missed them because I had it at 249. That would drive me insane to think I missed somebody because I priced it at 249. And I was going more with like the concept of human psychology is like I'm tricking you from thinking it's not 250. It's 250. I think we can all agree on that. So all those weird numbers, all that candy bar pricing, like I've called it so many times, is potentially hurting you from getting showings. So it's incredibly important to be thinking about numbers people plug into the computer. And then on that note, and it's kind of piggybacking off of it, so there's a lot of things we could say about what we're looking for in a great real estate agent. And one of those is somebody who can prepare you for actual buyer activity. I think it's extremely important you understand going into your first weekend on the market how many people are coming. Now, none of us have a crystal ball. Clearly, obviously, that's without a doubt. I mean, sometimes we just all have to experience it together because we can be in moments of shift, right? Like if you are just listing your house at the end of summer going into fall, like you should have somebody who understands what's going to happen and how to prepare you for that. Because for you as a seller, a lot of this is going to be in your head. You have the emotionality of selling something that you probably loved or care about, or you want to get a lot of money out of. It doesn't matter what frame mindset are, but you're going to be passionate about this. There's very few people that I've ever met in my career that are not passionate about what they're going to make and how long it's going to take to sell. Some people focus on one element more than the other, but unless it sells really fast and over asking, there's going to be some emotion that we're regulating in ourselves. And one way we can help that process is understanding what's about to happen. And so real estate agents, whether they realize it or not, have the ability to give you feedback on buyer activity. Now, every week I try to give you guys honest feedback about what's happening at a county level. That is honestly very broad because I am speaking to, I don't even know who I'm speaking to. I'm just speaking to such a broad audience right now. I don't know you and what you have, but townhouses versus condos, lakefront versus non-lakefront, certain school districts against each other, certain areas of town. All these elements create different market activity, okay? And not necessarily in a predictable way. And sometimes in a very predictable way, right? Like the lower price, probably more buyer activity. As the price goes up, there's less people who can actually afford a house at that price. So obviously there's going to be less buyer activity if I can't afford the house. Again, all the things. So understanding that, monitoring it week from week. So, for example, it's been pretty darn slow out there. Knowing that it's slow, helps me understand as a listing agent and as a home seller that this is not weird. I'm not doing anything wrong. My house is great. There's no buyers. That's a fact. So then I'm not adjusting price, because there's a lot of real estate agents out there that I'll see on public forums that'll say adjust price, 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 price. Of course, if I knock the price down significantly, everything sells. But maybe I'm giving away equity because I do not understand the market. This is extremely important. So like I said, lots of other points I could make. I do feel like some of them in this particular book are less important. For like example, they're talking about having printed materials on the kitchen counter. Just generally feel like people don't really care about that stuff anymore. That's not to say if your agent provides it that you should say don't provide it or anything like that. It's fine. Do I think it gets thrown in the back seat of a car and then eventually in the garbage can and creates waste in our environment? Yes, I kind of do. I think QR codes and websites and things like that can solve, and maybe just one thing sitting there that people can look at and take pictures of. I will stop there because there is so much more to say on it. I hope that helped somebody. Let me change my screen over and let me show you what's going on in our current market and how that might impact you. We're going to start here with the showings per week per listing. The reason I like looking at this data more than any other data pool is because it tells us how active home shoppers are. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll actually make a decision and purchase a house, but this just tells us who's actually out there shopping. There's really no better way to do this. And so I use 250 to 500K range, and I have a program where I can analyze this week by week. And this week we're at 2.1 for Wright County and 3.7 for Hennepin. So speaking now in English, that means if you had a house, any house in Wright County, about 2 showings a week is average. And Hennepin is about 3 to 4 showings a week is average. And while this is interesting on a very large scale, if you're selling a house right now, you're going to want to ask your agent about your particular market center. So what do I mean by that? Like if I'm selling a house in Crystal, let's say under a certain price point, that's going to be a different showing activity than, let's say, a luxury house at a different price point in a different area. So it's very broad when I say 2 showings a week in Wright and about 3 to 4 in Hennepin. Just gives us a general idea of movement going up and down. You can see over last week, it was a little bit busier in Wright and a little bit slower in Hennepin. So that's why we look at this weekly. It's like, where are the trends going? And, it's interesting, right? It just gives us an idea of what is happening. It's nothing like the spring market for sure. And to give you a comparison, so it's October 9th. Let's go kind of at the peak of the market here. Like this week actually, let's not use that one. So let's look here at April 24th. There was 4 showings a week in Wright County and 5 in Hennepin. And so you can see like here, in Hennepin County, it gets more active as we're going later into May, which is kind of interesting. But that doesn't necessarily affect Wright County the same. So everything is kind of its own nuance bubble. That also tends to be like what's on the market, right? Like if there's a particularly hot property and people pick up on it, these numbers get really pulled. Like this one, we were thinking, oh, it looks like there's 6 showings a week in Wright County a couple weeks ago, but it really wasn't accurate. There was something that was throwing that data. So on average, it's still taking about a month to sell a house in our area, 24 median. It doesn't mean you should be sweating if your house doesn't sell within a month, but you should be setting that expectation internally with yourself that it's probably not going to sell the first weekend necessarily. I mean, now we're at the top of October. And so hopefully you will get that house sold before November, because we are predicting that November will slow down quite significantly for sellers. And of course, buyers, reverse everything I'm saying. If I'm saying, one thing for sellers, then it's obviously the opposite for buyers. So then, maybe it's a good time to start looking and get off the fence. And, if I was going to pick between now and spring, I'm certainly looking now. I don't care about the snow that's coming. I can navigate around that. Looking at the other data quickly, just the tiniest drop down here of inventory when we look at actives. Now let's just talk about this for a moment. What I'm predicting will happen is that this number will continue to decrease as we head to November and December, because a lot of people who have not sold their house yet may be throwing in the towel and saying, hey, we didn't get an offer, or we didn't get the showing activity we were hoping. Therefore, we're just going to pull it. And what they're going to do is they're not going to list their house in November, December, or even necessarily January. February, people will start relisting houses that they tried to sell in the late summer and fall. And I could be wrong about this, but this is traditionally what happens, whether the real estate agent is guiding that or the person just realizes that themselves. Days on market, of course, impacts sellers because the more days they have, people start thinking something's wrong with the property. That's not necessarily true at all. It could be lots of different things are not making that house move. And in the recent past, it's just because there hasn't been buyers out there shopping. That there's a discrepancy between how many houses there are to buy and how many buyers. So it absolutely doesn't mean anything's wrong with the house. Don't be conclusive too quickly on days on market when you're shopping for houses. Make sure you're working with an experienced real estate agent and make sure you understand, is this actually been sitting for a long time, and why? I just looked at one the other day. I put it at about 100 to almost 150,000 over where it should be. I mean, that obviously explains why it's not moving. And their neighbor 2 houses down went into multiple offers. They were just really off on their price and buyers were picking up on it. So there's definitely some of that happening, and it'll be interesting if you watch those houses, what they do in the spring. Anyway, pendings, kind of went up, but then they were higher 2 weeks before. So not too much in trend here that we can see. Again, we're looking at over time, 192 for closings. Again, nothing particularly interesting. It's up over last week, but these things are going to ebb and flow, week over week, because a lot of people close at the end of the month or the beginning of the month. So we're going to naturally see some changes there. All right. If you have any questions about this data or any other data, definitely reach out and let me know. This Twin Cities data at large, this is only 2 days old. Let's start with this little star. This is an important piece of data. And if you go to the BricsTwinCities.com website, you will see the Brics meter live, where you can see how it goes up and down by the season, which is always interesting information. So we're at 3.18 this week, which means we are definitely in a buyer's market. We've been here for a number of weeks, so this shouldn't come to surprise to anybody who follows my videos. Inventory continues to be up. Again, what we've been seeing it like recent past, we had not seen this for years. So this is always very interesting. Days on market is 33, which I just shared with the Wright County data. That's very comparable. It's taking about a month. Now, remember, this is just certain price points. And I don't know, honestly, when the person who pulls this data, I don't exactly know how they're defining the Twin Cities. So, take all of this with a little bit of a grain of salt. And then interest rates, this is just vague information for those of you that are curious. I want you to contact a local loan officer and talk to them about your situation. Not only do we have down payment assistance, especially for first-time home buyers, there's been a new loan a waiver grant program for first generation, meaning you are the first person in your family to purchase a house. That money has been coming back up. They had run out of it for a while, but it's back. Anyway, this number 6.625 is just very generic. It's not a particular lender or bank, and I don't want you to be fixated on it or think that you can't do something, because you can buy points. And again, there's all sorts of different programs and situations, and you want to talk to somebody about your particular situation and not just look at these generic numbers. I certainly hope that helps somebody. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help.